of if we take real world assets right now, and I showed you my charts on how the prediction is saying this flow of liquidity is coming to this system, they could potentially borrow against it, and I think exchanges are going to buy it. What that would do is push up the price of these assets even more. I'm going to be showing you the 326 trillion in real estate moving on the blockchain, how Dubai launches their 16 billion real estate tokenization plan, and how it's going to be on the XRP Ledger, tZERO, and their plan for going IPO and what that means for tokenization of real estate. How tokenization creates money. I have a graphic of showing you real estate, tokenization, how they borrow, and how the price might be impacted. And then I also have a simulator for XRP, XLM, HBAR, and XDC. Dubai unveils real estate tokenization platform on the XRP Ledger amid $16 billion initiative. What this means is they're going to put the title on the XRP Ledger so that customers can buy fractional ownership of Dubai property. And this is just another vehicle to raise funds, which would, in my opinion, increase the price, because the more activity you have on the network, it's going to push up the price. So what they want to do is they want to do $16 billion worth of real estate digitized by 2033. And that's about 7% of their portfolio, or at least the agency's portfolio. And what I think they're going to do is there's probably an initiative that they want to own cryptocurrency as a reserve asset. And that's why they're doing it with XRP. But they're probably having issues with basically the trading pair of XRP to whatever their fiat system is. So they're going through this real estate sandbox just to kind of test the waters and see how that would look. And then they selected XRP Ledger, which is an interesting choice. And I don't bash it, but I more see this as an asset that they get to hold in reserves. And as you see in the past, people aren't really using it like Ethereum because it isn't designed like Ethereum. It's designed, in my opinion, more as a store of value. So I want to show you another graphic by Deloitte. They talk about how the global tokenized real estate value is expected to hit 4 trillion by 2035. And this is important because as money gets created on these blockchains, it's going to increase the activity. And as we know from the NFT craze, the more activity you have on chain, the more the price is going to go up. But what's interesting is they're saying real estate investment through fractional ownership. And so we even have like the 50-year mortgage now. But if we're going to like partially own property of, some building, that is maybe an interesting take. Kind of like how we have fractional Bitcoin. It'd be interesting to see if we had like a fractional XRP. Anyways, that was something I wanted to note. This is also interesting. Tokenization of private real estate funds are expected to grow to 1 trillion. Tokenization ownership of loans, which means creating money, that could grow up to 2.39 trillion by 2035. The tokenization ownership of undeveloped land and under construction project is expected to reach just 50 billion. Like I said, we're in the trillions now. But I had a graphic in my last video that pretty much talked about the 326 trillion, the global market of real estate. Really what I think might happen is there might be a push for tokenization on the blockchain just because they need the funds in cryptocurrency. That sounds kind of far-fetched, but with how things are going, in my opinion, companies are going to be more incentivized to have cryptocurrency that's not inflationary on the balance sheet. And I know from being on boards that one of the things that we want is assets on hand. We need the assets on hand to do these construction projects and to create collateral, basically create money. I'm going to show you one more graphic. The loans and securitization, that just means the creation of money. I want really to show you how much bigger it is versus the rest. So the creation of money is really important. I really try to hammer in the point that when you tokenize something, you have the ability to borrow against it, and that creates money. And in this debt-based system, the creation of debt is the creation of money. And I could show you some graphics on the M2 monetary supply, but even M1, really the debt creation is the expansion of money in the system. So I wanted to show you some of the organizations that are currently doing it, basically tokenizing real estate. And that's the creation of money. But Zoniqx, I learned how to pronounce it. That was something I talked about in my last video. But they're an exchange that basically is helping these companies tokenize their real estate. They're doing it through HBAR right now. There's also another company that I wanted to show you in this video of tZERO, and their plan is to go public, and their whole focus is tokenization of real estate. And remember, the tokenization of real estate isn't this fancy term. All it's doing is saying, let's say you have one asset like your house and putting it on the blockchain. That's just like an NFT. So I don't want to go too much in detail of this tZERO exchange because reality, they're all very similar. They just raise funds for the banks, and we're going to see so many of them pop up. But one thing I wanted to note was this is quote unquote the new rails for tokenization. And this is the cross-border payment narrative that everyone is hearing. But I've been trying to hammer in this point of the cross-border payment is the real-world assets. And this huge influx of capital that's coming to this market is really just taking existing capital and moving it to this brand new system, and it's going to be the rails. But I really see the benefit would be to borrow against it and have like a tier one, in my opinion, it's not tier one, but XRP, XLM, XDC. I want you to think like a business right now. So let's say you had a business and you had buildings on hand, which is real estate, and you're stuck in this old financial system with just fiat. You have $50 million worth of real estate. You have stocks, about $30 million. And so you're looking and you're going, man, all of this liquidity is flowing to this new system on the blockchain. One of the benefits would be you can come to a company like tZERO and they can take your existing real estate, tokenize it, and put it on the blockchain. One of the benefits would be you could have existing loans, but you can potentially borrow even more, and you can have an asset that, in my opinion, might be more valuable to these businesses. Because this is brand new territory, I have a proposition that you potentially could borrow twice on the same asset, especially with like fractional reserves that they talked about with real estate. I think we might get to a system where assets on hand with tier one crypto might be more valuable than the fiat that they have. And we see that with like SDR, but that's something that we're going to watch for. The more businesses that move to this new system, the more that they're going to borrow against it. And so real estate's going to, in my opinion, going to push up the price. So if they borrow against it, they're going to have XRP, XLM, HBAR, and XDC on their balance sheet. If they have those assets, which I think might become a tier one or a store value, that will push up the price. So companies like tZERO and Arcax, as I've shown you, they can potentially borrow against it, and it would put more pressure on these coins. They'll need an exchange, potentially go from their reserve asset to their fiat. And I think what that would do is put more demand. So I wanted to show you this. I created this example simulator of if we take real world assets right now, and I showed you my charts on how the prediction is saying this flow of liquidity is coming to this system. They could potentially borrow against it, and I think exchanges are going to buy it. What that would do is push up the price of these assets even more. And as I talked about, these are all ISO compliant. These are the infrastructure layers. I personally think these are more of the store of value. Really, the benefit of some of this stuff would be to have these assets as a reserve. And that's kind of what I see these companies doing. Yeah, the more the RWAs tokenize, the more that they can have these assets as reserve, which pulls out that coin out of that system, which creates more demand. And in my opinion, would put the more buying pressure. And so just like any market, it changes. And this is a concept. Please don't take this as fact. I really am just trying to show you the flow of money. So back to my Deloitte article, real estate asset tokenization can allow institutional investors to create custom portfolios with tokens that match their investment thesis. So that goes back to having assets and tokens on hand. They can take their existing real estate and put it on their portfolio and put it on the blockchain, and then they can borrow against it and have these cryptocurrency assets that are non-inflationary. These graphics I build myself, and I would love to hear from you. If you like what I'm talking about, just let me know, and I'll see you in my next video.